Hi everyone and welcome back to our channel. This is Teacher Andy for Proactive ESL. Proactive ESL is a place where we help you activate your English, be it grammar, functions, topics, or skills. Today we will be looking at a grammar topic. The grammar topic is specifically passive voice. Passive voice is a very important topic because it's frequently used in English. What is the problem with passive voice? It is that students usually overuse it in writing, but rarely use it in speaking. It is not easy to form many times, and students will use passive voice, but basically using past. Was cooked, was done, was built, was created, and this limits the level of your English. Usually the level for passive voice is upper intermediate or advanced. I set up the exercises that we're going to see in this lesson for upper intermediate or advanced, some more specifically for advanced students, so that again, you can try to practice the English that you have learned before. The problem with passive voice is that students study English for many years using active voice, and then reach the level for upper intermediate or advanced, and suddenly they're told, you know what? Passive voice exists in English and is used quite a lot. So changing the mindset so that you can now use passive voice is very difficult because all the time you've used active voice. Now, passive voice for sure is my favorite topic to teach. Today, we will look at how passive voice is formed and when it is used so that we do not overuse it so much in writing, but specifically like all exercises here at Proactive ESL, we're going to try to work for speaking and listening primarily so that you activate your English. The level for this topic is going to be upper intermediate or advanced. I have set up some exercises more geared towards advanced students, but in general, both upper intermediate and advanced students, I think, will benefit much from this lesson. So let's do it. Let's activate your passive voice. I know it sounds strange to activate the passive, but that's what we're going to do. Let's activate your English. Let's do it. So again, today at Proactive ESL with Teacher Andy, we're going to be looking at passive voice. We're going to have different exercises. We're going to start again with a general overview of passive voice. Then we're going to move on to some exercises to try to quickly activate your English. Remember, in this class, we don't first present the grammar and then you use it. It's the opposite. You try to use it. It doesn't matter if you use it perfectly or not. And then we try to present it so that, again, you know that you're active. You're actually trying to use the language. And the more you actively use it, the more you're prepared to actually understand it when it is presented. We're going to do a few exercises that are general in terms of some famous buildings and some famous paintings. Then we're going to do just a short story with COVID-19 because this is our reality right now with passive voice. We're going to move to actually using the passive voice in a setting where you can video call a friend or a group of friends so that you actually use in a conversation, even though right now we have to do it virtually using Skype or Zoom. We're going to do one exercise with beautiful images, and then we're going to start presenting the grammar. For the presentation of the grammar, we're going to be focusing specifically on the different possibilities, the different tenses, so that, again, you can see how to transform it from active to passive voice. We will look at the general formula for passive voice for those who are more mathematically oriented in the audience. And then we're going to specifically use at the actual uses of passive voice so that we do not overuse it, especially in writing, but also in speaking. After this, we're going to work with a topic-centered element. The element is gorillas. For the start, we're going to look at the WWF app to get some information about gorillas. It's a beautiful app. Then we're going to look at the story of Konada, which is one gorilla that I kind of invented on my own. and we're going to work with that. And then finally, you're going to be listening to a Nat Geo, National Geographic video, an excerpt, just about probably 2 minutes or so. And you're going to try to hear the passive voice in an actual real situation. Then we're going to, as usual, try to set up the homework. And from there, we will actually try to set up the class that we have using Zoom or Skype as the apps that we are currently using for our virtual settings. And again, remember, if you like these videos, give them a like. If you want, please subscribe to the channel so you get the next video as soon as I upload it to YouTube. Great, let's start. So for the general presentation, the initial presentation, we're going to just be looking at this painting over here. It is quite famous. Of course, you know that it's by Van Gogh. And again, it's called The Starry Night, right? Again, take a look at it. It's amazing. Look at that dynamism in the image. Look at the movement in the clouds, the movement in the stars. The whole night is becoming alive. There's the cypress in front, right? In the small town in comparison to the magnitude of nature. It was created by Van Gogh, and of course, in a kind of creative rapture. And we can see that it is a product of incredible imagination. It really changed the way that we see things, the dynamism and the movement of things out there in the world. But more importantly than the actual painting is we're going to be focusing on passive voice. And again, we already talked a little bit about the painting. For active voice, we could say something like this. Van Gogh painted The Starry Night, right? This one, active voice. There's the verb painted. But usually in English, we can transform it to passive voice. And when we have passive voice, we just switch it around. And we have The Starry Night was painted by Van Gogh, right? One of the things that makes passive voice so important in English is that it is frequently used. Not only that, but it's also the difficulty in trying to have good intonation when you say it. It is so frequently used that when you actually say the following sentence in English, I was born in 2005. It's not true. I was not born in 2005 for sure, a little bit earlier. But when I say I was born, even the action of coming into the world in English, you use passive voice. In other languages, you actually use active voice. But in English, you use passive voice even for the moment when you enter this world. Can you imagine? Remember, when we look at something like grammar at Proactive ESL, usually what we do is I don't explain to you the grammar from the start, but what I want you to do is I want you to activate the language that you already know. Now, many advanced students for sure have seen passive voice previously, so you can actually use it right now. And some upper intermediate students might be able to come up with some ideas for the following examples. We're going to be looking at some famous places, and we're going to be looking at some famous paintings so that, again, you can try to imagine how to use the passive voice. For this initial exercise, I want you to use the most basic passive voice, which is simple past. Remember, we saw the example with Van Gogh. With Van Gogh, you had The Starry Night was painted, was created, was built. This one is students' favorite passive voice, is using the simple past because it is quite easy. But the idea is when we move ahead in the lesson, you will be able to actually become more aware of how to use passive voice in much more difficult situations rather than just being stuck in past and just repeating was painted, was cooked, was whatever, right? And just thinking, oh my God, passive voice is easy. I use it, I know it, when you're just very limited to one kind of use of the passive voice. Here we have a set of different places. What I want you to do is I want you to look at each famous place and try to come up quickly, if you can, with one or two passive voices. Remember, don't worry if you have not seen passive voice, because the whole point is for you to understand that you have to say whatever you want or whatever you can instead of thinking, first I have to learn passive voice and then speak. No, don't worry. We're going to see how to form passive voice. But from the start, maybe you have seen it before. So now activate it. Make it real. Say it. Now, what I want you to do is do not write it. I want you to just say one or two passive voices. If you can, say the past. If you have more difficult passive voices, for sure, go ahead. But try to say it with the correct intonation. We're going to look at intonation later. This is going to be very important in the next exercises. But for now, passive voice in the past. Here we go. First one. Amazing, eh? Number two. Number three. It's famous, right? Love South America. As you know, teacher Andy, half Canadian, half South American from Colombia. So this one very special, right? Number 4. Quite famous, very historical, right? Number 5. Number 6. And the last one. Great. So again, remember, if you were not able to do a lot of passive voice, it doesn't matter. The idea is I want you to start to think, oh my God, can I use it or can't I use it, right? If you can, great for you. We're going to make it a little bit more complex so that you use other tenses. If you couldn't use it, but you said whatever you wanted, and again, you can rewind the video and repeat it one more time because again, we have to advance. The idea is if you couldn't, then we're going to actually activate it right now for our second exercise. We have to try to imagine using our grammar in English in real situations so that again, when we actually use it in real situations, we get accustomed to understanding that it is not about the grammar. It is about the actual real world when we use the grammar, the real world where we use the grammar. And that way, it's easier for us to actually produce because again, we're not thinking about imaginary situations, but real situations. The situation right now we are living is COVID-19, a difficult situation all over the world, especially for many countries. But the idea is that because we're talking about COVID-19, it is an object of which you can use a lot of passive voices. So what we're going to do first, I just want you to look at these sentences that I came up with, the story for COVID-19. I'm just going to set them up on screen. And what I want you to do is I want you to just quickly identify the passive voice. And if you can, after I finish setting up each sentence, then actually read it out loud so that you can practice your passive voice in a way that has good intonation. Ready? Here we go. So this is the story I came up with for COVID-19. This is the situation we're living right now. It's a real situation. Here we go. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. And finally, number 7. Okay, great. So remember, the only thing that you had to do now was not produce anything, was just simply to identify the passive voice in the sentence. What we're going to do is I'm going to do one example for you. I won't read all of them, but I'm just going to read, for example, number 1. And what I want you to focus on is the actual intonation for passive voice so that you start to correct the way that you say passive voice and not say it like you say it in your language. Ready? So number 1 is like this. The world has been attacked by COVID-19. The world has been attacked by COVID-19. Now, this one over here, of course, you have the passive voice is, has been attacked, right? Has been attacked. The problem when we actually pronounce this sentence for the intonation is that when I say that, many students will say it like this. The world has been attacked by COVID-19. The world has been attacked by COVID-19. Now, the idea is that in English, remember from other lessons we have done here at Proactive ESL, when we speak in English, we don't accent every word, we don't accent every syllable. We say things in groups. We have thought groups that are the ones that we actually use for intonation. And the way that we say it is like this. The world has been attacked by COVID-19. The world has been attacked by COVID-19. You see the difference? If you said the world has been attacked by COVID-19, the problem is not so much for speaking because people will understand what you're saying. The problem is that now you're upper intermediate, now you're an advanced student, and you have to really have much better intonation when you speak to others, right? This is more acceptable for intermediate students, but now is the time where you can polish this side of your English. Now, this we're going to work a lot with in the next few exercises, okay? Let's do number 2. Number 2 says, Talks have been held all over the world to fight it. So I'm just going to repeat it for you. Talks have been held all over the world to fight it. Do you hear the groups? Talks have been held all over the world to fight it. I don't say talks have been held, but have been held, have been held. The issue is that for many students, when you try to hear passive voice, it is very difficult for them because they want to hear have been told, or for example, number one, has been attacked. But nobody speaks like that in English. People will say has been attacked or have been held, have been held. So again, what do? You try to hear the past participle, attacked, held, and then you have to try in general to imagine the situation to figure out that it is passive voice. Don't worry, we're going to work with it quite a lot. Now, finally, with our story for COVID-19, I want you to look at number 7. Nurses and doctors must really be praised. Such courage, right? I don't want to analyze it. I just want to say for sure, it's amazing what these people are doing right now. They're risking their lives to help us all fight COVID-19, and they're doing it every single day while most of us have to stay at home. And again, hopefully try to learn something while we're at home. In this case, we're learning passive voice. Finally, I want you to take a look at this. This is the Coronavirus Disease 2019 Wikipedia section. And please believe me, read the section and you're going to see that you find passive voice all over the place. I invite you, go to the Wikipedia Coronavirus Disease 2019 site and then try to figure out and try to find the different passive voices. But remember, for now, again, we have not looked at the grammar. We are trying to have you understand that it's very important for you to be independent, to find the grammar yourself, to try to figure out the grammar yourself, and not so much that you have a teacher to tell you what the grammar is, and then you become active. No, the idea is it's your English. You can activate it right now. Don't wait for teachers. Let's move on. Our third exercise, again, is focused on trying to activate your passive voice through speaking. It is not about writing it. I know that if you write it, again, you keep it in your head, but that's not the point here at Proactive ESL. We want you to speak. We want you to use the language, right? So this exercise is one that I have done in many classes. And here we have to try to find other partners, maybe virtual partners, but just even if you are by yourself, don't worry about it. You can do it on your own. But the whole idea is to have a conversation with others. So if you have a partner around who is also studying English, again, call him at the same level, upper, intermediate, advanced. Give him or her the link to the channel and then look at the video in this section and then try to work with it together. Now, there are 4 groups. What you're going to do is you're going to have a sentence and you're going to try to make yes/no questions. Only yes/no questions. Information questions for passive voice are a little bit tough, so try to focus only on yes/no questions. This is the example that I have. Number 1, was born in Toronto. So again, if I want to imagine the yes/no question, I can ask you directly, were you born in Toronto, right? Were you born in Toronto? Please don't say, were you born, but were you born? Were you born? Remember, the accent is in the past participle. The idea is that we say, were you born in Toronto? Again, remember for yes/no questions, you have a yes answer, yes I was, or a negative answer, no I wasn't. Then you can say whatever you want about the situation. So for example, in case of Teacher Andy, no I wasn't. I was born in Bogota, Colombia, but my family is Canadian. And again, I can speak a little bit about the situation so that again, we don't only focus on using the passive voice, but we also connect it to just general speaking about the topic. So how are we going to do it? The idea is like this. There are going to be 4 groups. You're going to be group A, B, C, or D. And for each person, there are going to be 4 sentences or statements that are passive. And 1 is going to be active for you to always see the difference between actually making a question passive and making a question active, right? So this is group A. Please don't show to your partners. Each show the answers to the other person so that again, you actually use the conversation so the other person has to hear and try to understand what you're saying. This is group A, right? This is group A. And as you can see, question number 3 and question number 4 are a little bit different. One is passive voice, the other one is active. I want you to try to see the difference and use the difference in the question. This is group B, again, 4 situations. This is group C, again, 4 situations. And this is group D, again, 4 situations. So in my case, I'm going to give you one example. For group C, number 3 has been drawn by a cartoonist. Again, please remember to say has been drawn, right? Now, what is the yes/no question? Have you ever been drawn? Have you ever been drawn by a cartoonist? Have you ever been drawn by a cartoonist? And in my case, I haven't, so I can say, no, I haven't, right? Really haven't. I wish I had this experience, but I haven't had it. So again, one example where you have a negative yes/no question answer. Now, the other one is for group B, 2, it says the following: has been hit by a car. I'll repeat it. Number 2, group B, number 2, has been hit by a car. So again, just remember for the intonation, I say has been hit by a car. If I want to make the question directly to you is, have you ever been hit? Have you ever been hit by a car? Have you ever been hit? Have you ever been hit by a car? Try to repeat it. And again, remember, just as I did this one, try to do the other ones with your partners and don't say, have you ever been hit? Excuse me, what? Have you been hit? Because again, the whole point is for you to try to actually listen to English with the intonation for English, right? So for this one, have you ever been hit by a car? In my case, I can answer now affirmative. Yes, I have. I have been hit by a car. And again, you see how I contract the auxiliary. I've been hit by a car. And I can tell you a little bit about the story. You can also tell part of the story to your partners or the people you are doing the exercise with. In my case, I was hit by a car in a traffic accident, and the traffic accident was close to my house. I was driving my car, and suddenly a Jeep hit me from the side, and the car went tumbling a little bit. It was kind of crazy. I was very lucky that I survived the crash, and I was able to continue walking even after that. But again, the answer for this one, have you ever been hit by a car? Yes, I have. I've been hit by a car. Do you see how we are actually using the passive voice, but we're not paying attention to the grammar? That's what I want you to do. Don't pay attention to the grammar. Just use it. And again, don't worry. If you use it and it's wrong, that's fine. Just do the best that you can. Don't worry. Don't think, first I have to learn the grammar, then I'm going to use it. No, it's the opposite. Use it, and then, of course, we're going to look at it. We're going to look at the form of the passive voice. Don't worry, we're going to do it. We're also going to look at when to use it, but we have to reverse the order. At Preactive ESL, we reverse the order. First we use, and then we understand. And then when we understand after using, we even use it a lot more, right? And finally, as our final initial exercise for speaking to activate your English, even before looking at the grammar, we have this beautiful image. It's an image that is about maybe, 10 blocks from my apartment here in Toronto. What do you think? It's beautiful, eh? I don't want to say much. I just want you to look at the image. Remember, we're talking about the object there, the image, the painting, the graffiti. I don't want to say any examples. And the idea is I want you to try to focus on it and try to come up with 5 passive voices. For now, because we have not looked at passive voice, don't worry. Go ahead and just use the past. Was, right? Plus the past participle. Don't worry about it. Use whichever you want, but I want you to come up with 5. But for the 5, again, if you're an advanced student, again, use more sophisticated passive voice if you can. But for all of them, what I want you to do is I want you to look at the intonation. Don't say, as we did before, try to say the thought groups so that your English starts to sound more like a native speaker. Your English becomes really, really more advanced. Okay, go ahead. Try to imagine some. Look at that beautiful image. What can you tell me about it using passive voice? How was it? Did you come up with 5 good passive voices? Was it easy? Did you come up with them just like that? Or did you have to think about it quite a bit? The idea is, don't worry if you have to think a little bit about them. Try to, again, relax. Try to use the language. And again, remember, the idea is we're learning. We're trying to use more difficult structures. And if you're an upper intermediate student, it really takes more time. If you're an advanced student, then great. Go ahead and produce as many as you can. And if you can, use the more complex examples that we're going to look at right now. So here we are now at the specific topic that people usually are waiting for, right? Teacher, please tell us, how do you form passive voice? Again, remember, we're doing everything the other way around. First, we're going to try to produce the language, and then we're going to look at it, right? But we're going to look at it in a way that you are going to participate as well. So this is the basic grammar for passive voice. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to look at one example in active voice, and then you at home are going to try to transform it into passive voice. I'll give you some time and see if you can do it quickly or if you have some issues with it. Now, again, I will not tell you how to do it for now. I just want you to try to do it, and then we're going to be looking at how it is done. Ready? Here we go. The first example is this one. And for this one, what I want you to imagine is we're going to be talking about a specific topic. We talked about COVID-19 at the beginning. Now we're just going to be focusing on a company. For business English, we have many companies, right? And of course, companies are also an object of which you can use passive voice quite a lot. The one that we're going to be looking at is Apple, which is quite famous, and all the examples with all the different possibilities for tenses are going to be used with the company Apple. Here is the first one. So again, for active voice, I can say Apple made the iPhone in 2007. Here I have my iPhone. I'm using it right now to remotely control Keynote. And again, for this one, you have active voice. Apple made the iPhone in 2007. So go ahead, try to change it into passive voice. I'm sure this one's easy for you, right? So yeah, of course, it's like the Starry Night example. The iPhone was made by Apple in 2007. Great. This one is usually the passive voice that most students are accustomed to using. You use the past with was or were, and then again, of course, you use passive voice. What we want to do now is we want to focus on all the possibilities that you have for passive voice, so that again, your English really is more upper intermediate and really is more advanced. So this is the first one. We're going to look at a second one, and then we're going to start to try to think about how you form passive voice from active voice. Here we go. Number 2 is this one. Apple has made 10 iPads since 2010. And for this one, again, that's active voice. Apple is doing the action. How would you transform it into passive voice? Go ahead and try to do it. How was it? So here we have the passive voice. How do you say it? 10 iPads have been made by Apple since 2010. Now, let's look at these two examples, and we're going to try to figure out how to move from active voice to passive voice. Remember, when you have been studying English, you have been studying active voice, and then suddenly you get to upper intermediate or usually advanced English, and they tell you, okay, there's this thing called passive voice. Now I want you to use it. Of course, if you're using active voice all the time, then now you have to switch, and you have to switch the mindset that you're actually using for your English. So look at the first one. As you can see, I've color-coded the different aspects so that it's easier for you to see. And if you can look at it, you have the active voice, the verb is made, and you keep the same verb in the passive voice, right? For example, this one, Apple made the iPhone. When you use it in passive voice, you have the iPhone was made. Then you have in green the verb to be. You always have to use the verb to be, right? And then you always have to what? Look at example number 2. Apple has made 10 iPads since 2010. In this one, you have has made. Here you have an auxiliary, which is in orange color, right? And you have to, again, if you have an auxiliary, you have to actually use the auxiliary. How do you do it? Remember, you have to use, for example, for this one, 10 iPads, you have to transform it into have. Now, in purple, made. Then you have green, which is always the verb to be. And then you have orange, which is the auxiliary has or have. Now, how do I go about in transforming it from active to passive? Again, we're going to look at the formula, but the most important thing is that you change the order in the sentence. First, you have Apple made the iPhone. This is active because Apple makes the thing. But then when you change to passive voice, you have to switch it. And then first you place the object, right? The iPhone was made by Apple in 2007. Number 2, Apple is very active producing iPads. Apple has made 10 iPads since 2010. Again, we change it. First start with the object. 10 iPads have been made by Apple since 2010. Great. Remember, we use the auxiliary if you have one. Then you have to use the verb to be. The verb to be has to go in the tense of the actual verb. If I have the iPhone was made, because made is in the past. If I have Apple has made, 10 iPads have been made, because again, has made is with the auxiliary have, so I have to change in the passive have been. And then in purple, you have the verb made, which is the past participle. That's the idea. You always use the past participle. Again, don't worry, we have this formula in a second in a few slides for you to again review and review and review. But let's go ahead and move on and tell me for the other ones. For example, number 3. Apple is making the new iPhone 13 right now. How do you transform that one to passive voice? Go ahead and try to do it. This one's tough. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to help you out. So remember, first thing we do, we have to switch it, right? If we have Apple, we have to put it at the end and the object comes at the beginning. So I have start with the new iPhone 13, right? That's what the object is, starts because it's passive voice. Then remember, with the orange, we always have an auxiliary. Do we have an auxiliary? Yes, we do. It's is, right? So we have to use the auxiliary, right? And then what is the other thing that we have to do? We have to use the verb to be. So we are going to have to use the verb to be. And we have to use the verb to be. How? In the same tense as the original sentence. So again, if it's the auxiliary is the verb to be, then we also have to use the verb to be, and it's is making. So we have to use the verb to be in the progressive, being, ing. And then what is the other thing we always have to use? We always have to use the past participle. How did we use it before? It was made in the color purple. So how do you transform it into passive voice? You go ahead and say, the new iPhone 13 is being made by Apple right now. Tough. I know this one's a tough example, and you're going to see tougher examples. But this one over here, to repeat. Remember, when you use passive voice, you have 3 things. You have to switch the object and the subject. Again, the new iPhone 13 comes at the beginning. Then if you have an auxiliary, the orange one, you have to use it, right? So you have the auxiliary is. And then you always have, look at the green section. For the green section, you have always the verb to be. And how do you write it? You write the verb to be in the same form as the original sentence. The verb to be here has to be being, because the original sentence is making, ing, right? Progressive. And then finally, with the purple, what do you have to use? You have to use the past participle. So how do you transform from active to passive? This sentence you have, Apple is making the new iPhone 13 right now. You transform it, the new iPhone 13 is being made. It's being made by Apple right now. Again, I know a lot of movement, a lot of changes, but that's what we're going to be doing from now on. We're going to be trying to use the passive voice, but not with the more basic, simple past, but actually using it with tougher verbs like this one over here. So let's go ahead and continue with some more examples. Look at number 4. Apple usually makes cool products. How would you write the passive voice? Ask yourself, does it have an auxiliary or no? I always have to use the verb to be in the same tense. How am I going to use the verb to be here? And remember, we always have to use the past participle of the main verb. Here the verb is makes, again, for all of the examples that we're doing. So remember, auxiliary yes or no. Verb to be, you have to use it with the same tense, and then the verb has to transform to the past participle, plus you have to switch the object and the subject, right? So how was it? Here we go. This is the passive voice. Cool products are usually made by Apple. Did you get it? Don't worry if you didn't. Again, you'll be able to look at this information again, try to figure it out. And again, in a few slides, you will have the whole formula for you to always remember. Great. So those were the easy examples. Can you imagine? Now we're going to be looking at the tougher ones. For these ones, I'm not going to help you as much. I really want you to activate your English. You have to yourself try to figure out how to do it. And the best way for you to do it is for me not to say anything. Of course, don't worry, we're going to do more exercises, but try to review what I said before and try to do the same thing for these examples over here. For number 5. Number 5 is, Apple should make an iCar soon. Did you get it? Remember, switch the object, use the auxiliary if it has. Verb to be has to be used, remember the green, and then the past participle of the main verb. An iCar should be made by Apple soon. An iCar should be made by Apple soon. Remember what we talked about intonation? Here you don't say an iCar should be made, but should be made. Should be made, right? Should be made, not should be made. Should be made. Thought groups, okay? Now, an iCar should be made by Apple soon. And look at number 6. Number 6 is, Apple could make an awesome spaceship. I think so, right? Incredible spaceship. Can you transform that one to passive voice? This one a little bit easier. Very similar to exercise number 5. Did you get it? This is the passive voice, right? An awesome spaceship could be made by Apple. Great. Number 7, again, a little bit easy. Apple won't make more iPods again. Active voice. Can you transform it to passive voice? Here we go. iPods won't be made by Apple again. And the final one, number 8, really tough for more advanced students. Apple should have made a cheaper iPhone 11 Pro. So again, remember for the intonation, I don't say Apple should have made, but Apple should have made, should have made, the accent in the past participle. Apple should have made a cheaper iPhone 11 Pro. I'm going to give you some time. Try to transform it. How do you transform it? Same thing again. Switch the object. Look if there is an auxiliary. If there's an auxiliary, you have to use it. The verb to be, you have to use the verb to be always when you produce passive voice. You have to use it with the same tense as the sentence has in the original. And then finally, you have the verb. You have to use the past participle of the verb. Here's the passive voice. Did you get it? Okay, now try to say it for me. Say that sentence for me with good English intonation. The thought groups. Can you say it? It's a little bit tougher for you to say, right? I'm going to say it for you one time. It goes like this. A cheaper iPhone 11 should have been made by Apple. A cheaper iPhone 11 should have been made by Apple. Now, try to hear the difference. When I hear active, Apple should have made, and then the passive, a cheaper iPhone 11 should have been made. You just hear made. They sound almost exactly the same. Do you understand when I say that it is very tough for students to try to hear the passive voice? Because they sound, in many cases, similar to the active voice. Again, example number 8, Apple should have made, passive voice, and a cheaper iPhone 11 should have been made. Should have made, should have been made. You just hear the made. Great, let's move on. Do you see why passive voice is more upper intermediate and advanced? For sure, I know, it's tough. And I know it's tough here at YouTube. We don't have a lot of time. We have to try to advance. But again, you can rewind the video and again, listen again to the examples that I give you. Look at the colors so that you can, with the color-coded words, you can say, oh, you can identify. But more importantly, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give you a formula. If you are more mathematically oriented, you will get this one. But again, many students love formulas. They really want to see how the grammar works. And here you have the formula. When you have active voice, you have the subject plus the auxiliary, remember the orange one, plus the verb and the object. How do you transform it into passive voice? This way. You just switch it, right? You place the object first, then if you have the orange, the auxiliary, then you have to use it if there is one. That's why it's in parentheses. Sometimes there is no auxiliary. Then in green, you always have to have the verb to be, always, right? So how do you change it? Depends. If in the first sentence, the original active sentence, you have present, then you use the verb to be in present. If it's progressive, you use progressive. If it's present perfect, you use the verb to be in present perfect, right? The past participle. Finally, in purple, you have the main verb. And the main verb, whichever it is, you always have to transform it to past participle. And again, you really have to know your past participles really well for passive voice. Finally, in parentheses, you have by the subject, right? And why in parentheses? Because in many situations, you don't really have to repeat it. It's kind of obvious, so you don't repeat it in those situations. We're going to look at the uses in a second. So this is the way that you move from the object from the last part of the active sentence to the beginning of the passive sentence. And then the subject, you move to the last part of the passive sentence by using by as well. This one for passive voice. Take a look again at this formula. Look at the examples from before. Remember, it's color-coded so that you can always see the auxiliary, you can see the verb to be that is green, and you can see the main verb, which is purple. And then from there, you will be able to actually understand how to do it. And of course, start using it for speaking. It's going to be tough. Use past, which is the most common one. But again, try to look at the other examples where you have present progressive, should have, and tough examples that make your passive voice much richer than I'm sure it is actually right now. Let's move on. We have looked already at the way the passive voice is formed. As you can see, this is a good example for passive voice. The passive voice is formed by students, but the idea is not only to understand the grammar. The most important thing is to actually know when to use the grammar. The typical example for students is this one. They say something like, this homework is done by me, or this homework was done by me, and the student jumps up and says, great, I've been using passive voice. But the problem is this is a very weird example. Nobody actually uses that example in real life. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the actual uses of passive voice. So the first one is when the subject is obvious. Here is an example for you. If I say in active voice, people speak Spanish in Colombia, again, Colombia is a Spanish-speaking country, so it's kind of obvious, right, that the people speak the language. So it's very strange to actually say it in active voice. Usually what you say, transforming it, is Spanish is spoken in Colombia. Spanish is spoken in Colombia, passive voice. And again, because the subject is so obvious, you don't say Spanish is spoken in Colombia by the people. Because of course, it's the people that actually speak the language, right? So this is the first example of a use. Then the second one is this one over here. It's when an object is very important, more important than the subject. In active voice, many people can say, in more basic English, they will say they killed President Lincoln. He's a very famous president and a very important person. And of course, if you want to have the headline for a newspaper, you're not going to start with they. They? Who cares who they are, right? What we care about is President Lincoln. So we use passive voice and we transform it and actually say President Lincoln was killed or President Lincoln has been killed. Different variations for that one. You see, use number 2 is when the object is more important than the subject. Finally, there's a really cool example. It's when you're very polite or you want to cover up or you don't want to mention a name. This is a typical example for you to remember. I can say in active voice, Carl has made terrible mistakes. And again, here I'm pointing out Carl. Imagine we're together with a lot of people and we don't want to embarrass Carl, right? If I say Carl made the terrible mistake, imagine in an English class where everybody is afraid to speak. I don't just want to make Carl feel horrible, right? And speak less. What I want to do is I want to mention that some mistakes have been made, but I want to do it without pointing out who did it, right? So in this one over here, we actually changed the active voice to passive voice, and it reads like this. Terrible mistakes have been made in this mission, or terrible mistakes have been made in this class. The idea, you see, now I don't even mention Carl. Maybe after the class or maybe after the mission, whatever, I will set up an appointment with Carl and we'll discuss what happened, right? But he's not embarrassed. And if it's an English class, he will continue to participate. Good. Those are the 3 uses. Number 1, when the subject is obvious. Number 2, when the object is more important than the subject. And again, number 3, when you want to be polite or you don't want to mention the subject. Let's go on. When learning your English, it is very important to always try to think about a topic connected to what you're learning. For the passive voice, we have been doing lots of exercises, but now we're just going to focus on one specific topic, and this topic is gorillas. Now, for gorillas, you have this picture over here. Kind of cool. They're beautiful, gigantic animals, right? Very smart, very beautiful. And I'm just going to make him jump a little bit. There you go. Thank you, Keynote, for that. And what I want you to do is you're going to download an app on your iPhone. It's the WWF app. It's beautiful. I'm going to show you a video here in a second for the app itself so that you can recognize it and download it. And you're going to try to answer these 3 questions. Again, how well do you know gorillas? This app is free, it's beautiful, and it's going to help you understand not only gorillas, but other endangered species in the world. Question number 1 is, where do they live? Again, is this active or passive? It's active, that's correct, right? Number 2 is, why are they being killed? Again, this is very strange. These majestic animals, they're being killed. Try to figure out why they're being killed and what are the threats that they have in the current moment. And then number 3 is, how can they be saved? Again, in the app, you will have some possible solutions and lots of information so that you can find some possible solutions to their situation. Again, watch this video from the WWF app. It's free, download it, really get to look at it. It's in English. You will practice your English and you will learn specifically a topic where you can connect the passive voice to one problem in the real world where you can try to find solutions to that specific problem. In our case, it's just going to be gorillas. We're going to do many exercises with them. Watch the video. For sure, in terms of gorillas and their endangerment, we have to be active and not passive. But unfortunately, here we're talking about grammar. We have to look at passive voice. So the next exercise is going to be one that I created myself with a colleague of mine whom I remember really, really well. And this is the story of Konada gorilla. And this one over here, the idea is the following. I'm going to tell you a story, and for this story, again, look at the pictures on the side, but I'm going to tell you the story in active voice. We're going to go through each section of the story. The story is 20 sentences long. We can't do all the sentences here because, again, we would have a huge video, even longer now. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a few of them. I'm going to show you how to do it. And for you at home, you're going to continue with the exercise. And later on, when you can do all of them together, you're going to try to do the whole story together in passive voice, all of it. And you're going to try to record yourself saying the whole story in passive voice with good intonation. Remember, we've practiced the intonation. This one over here, iPods have been made. No, 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 please. iPods have been made. No, iPods have been made, Remember the accent in the past participle? When you retell the story, I want you to record it on the phone so that you feel that you're listening and you're trying to say it in much better English intonation, okay? So let's go ahead and start. So for the first one, what we're gonna do is this. You're not going to be able to see it on the screen the first time. I want you to be able to get used to hearing it and then trying to produce the passive voice and not just looking at the screen and then figuring out where the verbs are and then transforming it. Because again, we're trying to set it up for a conversation. And for a conversation, you have to have the ability to understand and try to continue the conversation. So the first one over here is this one. They captured a silverback gorilla in Congo Belgai. I'm going to repeat it for you. They captured a silverback gorilla in Congo Belgai. What I want you to do is I want you to transform it to passive voice. Okay, go ahead and do it. Now, what I want you to do is when you're ready to say it, don't say it by sections. Try to practice forming the passive voice and then think about saying it one time with good intonation. Okay, you got it? So that's correct. A silverback gorilla was captured in Congo Belgai. A silverback gorilla was captured in Congo Belgai. Not was captured, but was captured. Very good. This is the one for you to see. That's the active. Now let's look at number 2. For number 2, it is for more advanced students. I can say it like this. They could also have captured it in Rwanda. I'm going to repeat it for you. They could also have captured it in Rwanda. This one, again, very difficult to do for advanced students. Try to do it. Remember, try not to say it in sections. Try to form it, and then when you're ready, go ahead and say it complete with good intonation. Ready? Okay, I'm gonna say it for you, and then we're gonna check if you had it right. And this one over here. The gorilla could have been captured in Rwanda. The gorilla could have been captured in Rwanda. Did you get it? Again, look at the intonation. Could have been captured, not could have been captured. And I'm gonna show you the active voice. Okay, now here we go. So you see, we're starting to build the story, but it gets a little bit trickier because now what I want you to do is I want you to retell the story completely. So I want you to do number 1 and number 2 together so that now you're actually using passive voice more and more in terms of the story. So how does the story go? This one over here is like this. So a silverback gorilla was captured in Congo Belga. He could have been captured in Rwanda. You see, now I say number 1, number 2. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. Number 3 is like this. This one's simpler for you. They took the gorilla to America. So I'm gonna repeat it for you. They took the gorilla to America. Now try to do the passive voice. I'm pretty sure you got this one, right? So the passive voice is the gorilla was taken to America, right? The gorilla was taken to America. Again, did you say the gorilla was taken or was taken? Was taken to America. Look at the sentence over here. Again, what we have to do is we got to repeat now number 1, number 2, number 3. I'm going to do it for you, but if you really want to practice passive voice, you should do it at home. Try to do number 1, number 2, number 3. And remember, there's 20 of them, right? So imagine, if saying 3 is a little bit tough, imagine trying to tell the whole story. So here we go. A silverback gorilla was captured in Congo Belga. He could have been captured in Rwanda, and he was taken to America. Okay, I'll repeat it for you. So this is all together. A silverback gorilla was captured in Congo Belga. It could have been captured in Rwanda. He was taken to America. Let's do a final one. Again, you get the idea. Try to do it by yourself or try to do it with a friend by reading the sentence to the person so that they don't actually see the sentence, and then trying to transform it to passive voice through a video call in our case. Now, number 4 is again for advanced students so that again, you feel that you're learning something new. And again, you question whether you can use passive voice really, really well or not. Number 4 goes like this. They're taking the gorilla in a helicopter right now. I'm going to repeat it for you. It says, they're taking the gorilla in a helicopter right now. Take a few moments, try to organize it. And when you say it, try to say it with English intonation. Did you get it? Okay, I'm going to say it for you, right? So the correct answer for the passive voice is the gorilla is being taken in a helicopter right now. The gorilla is being taken in a helicopter right now. Did you get it? Now, look at the active voice. Is this one over here? Now, again, if you're having trouble forming them, try to review the sentences that we did previously. Remember, sometimes we have present progressive, sometimes we have past. All of the examples are in the charts that we did together, so you will find the answers for them. If you can't find them right now, or if you're a little bit confused, for sure it's going to happen. And again, remember, the whole point is not only to tell the story, but more importantly is for you to actually feel that you're using the grammar and using the grammar at a very high level, right? With difficult sentences, so that you don't use passive voice just simply with the past. Was captured, was cooked, was eaten, was this one, these examples that we saw previously. Remember, what do we have to do? Now we have to retell the whole story one more time. And again, I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to try to do it. It's not even easy for the teacher, but I'll try to do it as best I can, okay? So a silverback gorilla was captured in Congo Belga. He could have been captured in Rwanda. He was taken to America. And right now the gorilla is being taken in a helicopter. There you go. What I want you to do is I want you to look at number 5 to number 20. And again, try to do all of them. Try to retell the story. And by doing this, it's going to be incredible. Your mind is going to be more prepared to actually use passive voice and do it more spontaneously when you are in a conversation. Okay? I'm going to just give you the other ones over here. So here we go. Number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10 for this slide. As you can see, the yellow says advanced because they are the tougher ones. And again, we can go ahead and move to the next slide, which continues the story. The story continues here. It's a very beautiful story for Konada. Again, we came up with this idea with a colleague of mine many years ago. He has passed away, and I always remember him for teaching me how to really love passive voice. And here you have number 11, number 12, number 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, okay? You have the whole story. Try to do it. Look at that beautiful image. And just remember, we're trying to activate your passive voice so that you actually use it. Again, for this one over here, Did you get the right information is question number one. That's perhaps the most important thing for you to try to do. Not only just say the grammar was captured, has been taken, these ones over here, but also question number two is this one. Can you tell the story without looking? Now, of course, at the beginning, we're going to try to look at these sentences so that we can try to arrange from active to passive, but try to get rid of the paper, try to get rid of the screen, and again, try to retell the story. If you can, record the story on your iPhone. Try to do it. Again, it doesn't have to be 20. Again, it doesn't have to be with perfect intonation. I just want you to feel, one, that you can use passive voice, that you can use more sophisticated passive voice, that you can actually get your intonation much better, okay? Record yourself, and for the class that we're gonna set up, send it to me and we'll look at it together. Remember, we did the exercise with the beautiful graffiti with the angel. So now we're going to do something similar. This is one of the most famous photographs ever in the top 100 Times Magazine photographs. Is this one over here. It's a shocking photograph of the way that we have treated gorillas, specifically in the Congo. This is the killing of a gorilla, and these men, they have protected the gorillas, the rangers, and they're carrying him after being assassinated with all his family, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to think about 5 passive sentences, but now I want you to use more complex tenses. Remember before I said to you, okay, use passive voice, whatever was created, was whatever. But what I want you to do now is, again, incorporate modals, should, could have in the past, might have. Also use, again, future, use present perfect, have had, all these examples so that, again, you feel that you can produce really passive voice at a higher level, at a more advanced level. I'm going to give you the picture so that you can pause the video and actually do it. But we also have another possibility, and this, again, is really amazing. In Toronto, we have tons of graffiti. I have been photographing graffiti for quite some time, and this is an image that is really shocking to me. It's about 5 blocks from my apartment right now, and again, what I want you to do is, as quickly as possible, try to come up with 5 different passive voices. Use difficult verbs. Don't just use make, made, create. Use as many as you can, trying to put yourself in the position of the object, the gorilla specifically, and come up with 5 of them. In order to activate your passive voice, we really have to start thinking about changing our mentality, right? Not only just learn the grammar, not only be able to produce it using good intonation as we have practiced throughout this lesson, but more importantly, understand that you produced it with good intonation, not only for speaking, but more importantly, to be able to understand more advanced English. The more you can produce the English intonation, the more you can actually understand the intonation when an English speaker actually speaks in English. So the final exercise we're going to do, we'll focus on a trailer for a shocking documentary. It's the shocking documentary that records the history of the killing of the gorilla that we saw in our previous exercise. It's very short, it's about 2 minutes, 2 minutes 30 seconds. It's at Virunga Park in Congo. And the idea is they're gonna tell us what happened that day when the photographer actually took that famous picture. Now, for this one, what I want you to do is, can you hear 8 passive voices and the way that they're used? Again, try to listen to the intonation. Don't expect the people to say, could have been, whatever. Just remember to try to hear the passive voice. You try to focus on the past participle, and then using imagination, try to recreate what comes before. Number 2 is this one. Why is passive used here? Try to answer that question for me. Number 3 is, did you get the intonation? Remember, we've worked at it a lot in this lesson. Try to always remember why it is so important. Of course, not only for passive voice, but also for all your English, as we will develop in other lessons here at Proactive ESL. And finally, of course, you have to know the past participles. If you don't know the past participles with good pronunciation, right, then you cannot produce passive voice, and worst, you cannot really understand it. Let's say, for example, if I have give, gave, given, if I can't hear the past participle, I won't be able to understand it, right? And finally, can you repeat them? For this one, you can write it down. Try to write down as you listen to the video the 8 passive voices that they actually use. And again, try to answer these 4 questions the best that you can. It's not a test. Remember, the idea is for you to feel empowered, to feel that you're activating your passive voice, not only by speaking, but as well by listening. What can we say? We humans, we have a problem. We have to try and find solutions to it. COVID-19 also teaches us right now, as we did at the beginning of a lesson, that there's something wrong in the way we relate to the world. We got to change that. Let's learn passive voice by looking at how we can change the world and by looking at possible solutions to these problems. Let's not learn passive voice just to learn the grammar, just to tell everybody, look, I know English. We got to learn the language to do something about these changes in the world, okay? As always, we have some homework exercises that we set up beforehand, before we have the actual class using the Skype or Zoom apps. And for this one, I'm going to send to your email tons of photocopies and tons of pages that you will have to study beforehand. The first one is specifically this one, is again to try to study and review the advanced grammar exercises. This one you can fill out in writing and then practice a little bit more. But as usual, the most important thing is don't stop at writing it. Try to say it once you have finished. Number 2, you're going to think about the first example that we did in the beginning of this lesson, and you're going to think about a famous building or a famous artwork from your country, from your city, and you're going to try to present it because it's an object for which we can use passive voice. Then, of course, for this one, you can think about 5 or 6 passive voices, and again, try to present it. How? By vlogging yourself. As I'm doing right now, I'm presenting a video to you. I want you to do the same. Take a risk, right? The idea is use the passive voice. You can write it down so that you have a better presentation, but something that is important to your country or to your city that you can share with others by actually using passive voice, okay? Now, number 3, this one is very important, okay? Oh, sorry, number 2. And number 3 is this one over here. And of course, what I said before, you have to review your past participles. Remember, in English, we have regular and irregular past participles. I'm sure many of you have tried to learn them again and again, but the important thing is not only the list, but the pronunciation and being able to understand them when you hear. Again, the very important thing is if you're an advanced student, your level of, or the number of past participles you should know is really, really high. Tough past participles. In this class, we can't go into that. I will do another video where I will focus on their pronunciation for them, and we will go from there, okay? Now, for exercise number 4, we have this exercise over here. I want you to go to the following link, and you will be able to see the complete Nat Geo documentary. Watch it fully, and again, you will learn what is the problem at Virunga National Park in Congo. In this way, you will always remember the passive voice connected to the situation in a faraway land that really doesn't touch us until we actually can see it with our own eyes. Also, of course, if you have Netflix, there's the Virunga documentary. Watch it. This way, you will always remember the gorillas, and try to think, if the gorilla is far away from you, right, in terms of your country, you don't have gorillas in your own country, there are many endangered species, as you can see from the app that you have to download for the WWF. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about an endangered species in your own country, and again, vlog yourself, 5 minutes, record yourself, and again, that way you can present another example of using passive voice in a realistic scenario, but not only realistic, but actually trying to find solutions to your own situation in your own country. Now, number 5, remember when we did the passive voice for Apple? When we talk about companies, and especially for business English, we use the passive voice frequently. Why? Because again, the company is the object that we try to speak about, that we present to others. And because of this, we use passive voice quite a lot. The example for Apple that we did again and again, remember we did it before. Apple has made many iPhones, right? The idea for this one is I want you to think about your own company. In my case, I worked at EF in Toronto, and I could tell you a lot of examples with passive voice. It was created. Many students have been taught at EF for many years. And I want you to, again, try to imagine your own company if you're working right now, or a future company that you want to present to others, or a company that you admire. If you don't know which company to actually select, go to this website, Business English Study. You have the link right there. And when you go to this website, you're going to be blown away. It is really amazing. The people there have created a long list of companies, intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced levels. You can choose, try to listen to what they offer, and when you listen to them, try to hear the passive voice and try to, again, use these examples to try to present your own country. Finally, what can I say? Oh, here we go. These are the little pictures for us. We got to look at those. And then finally, remember, exercise 6 is we have our live class. We have to schedule it using the Zoom or Skype apps. And again, in that class, we're going to continue activating your passive voice. How? Not by focusing on the grammar, not by focusing on written exercises, by actually using the grammar in speaking, in conversation, and by trying to understand how can I improve my English for more advanced levels. If I feel that sometimes I have studied a lot of English, but still it's difficult for me to use more sophisticated structures, and more importantly, to actually understand more sophisticated structures. Also, if you're an upper intermediate student, you can check out the video on tag questions. It will help you out in terms of trying to produce tag questions. If you're an advanced student, go ahead and check out the video on communication. For sure, it will help you out in terms of learning what it is to communicate. As well, down in the description of the video, you will find a link. There you can click the link and you will receive a PDF. It's a bonus and for free. I have set up a summary of what we have done here in the passive voice video. Check out the link in the description of the video. Go ahead and link it. And again, share with others so that they have the information. You will find some helpful information there so that you always remember passive voice. Great. Once again, we have come to the end of our class here at Proactive ESL with Teacher Andy. What can I say? Only thanks. I enjoyed really teaching passive voice with you guys once again. I really enjoyed. I'm going to give you one example. It's this one over here. This lesson has been finished by me. This is the worst example for passive voice. Don't use it. Remember, this is really, really bad. But again, you have passive voice and you have the orange color, the green color, and the purple color so that you always remember passive voice. Now, to be more serious, this mug over here with the Toronto CN Tower, I'm going to just show it to you. This mug was created by me, right? So kind of cool. We have the Canadian flags. The Canadian flag is another object for which you can use passive voice quite a lot. And more importantly, think about the gorillas and remember to be proactive. Don't be passive about what the situations that are happening in the world. Many people just relax about things, they just wait it out. You've got to be proactive about situations because we are not proactive. It's the reason why we have COVID-19 right now amongst us, causing so many deaths. This is my website. Again, go visit it. And this is my email. What can I say? Thank you once again. We're here in Proactive ESL to activate your English. Today, we try to activate your passive voice. I hope we did. And again, let's do it. Let's activate your passive voice. Let's activate your English. I leave you with this beautiful picture. Again, think about Konada when you're thinking about passive voice. And again, thanks so much. However, remember, here at Proactive ESL, Teacher Andy sometimes has a surprise at the end of our videos. And this one over here is, of course, a specific building here in Toronto. I'm pretty sure you know it. It's the CN Tower. I'm going to show you this brochure. It's kind of cool. Look how it unfolds. Again, CN Tower, pretty tall, right? And again, the brochure shows it really, really well. Now, for this exercise, it's not really an exercise. I want you to just relax, but think about the CN Tower. It was created, it has been visited, lots of passive voices. I'm just going to share some pictures that I myself have taken in a video that I myself did here in Toronto. So you can feel a little bit what it is to live here in Toronto. I know many of you won't be able to come here and visit this amazing city, but at least looking at some images, you might be able to feel part of it. And then again, this is an example for you to share the one building in your country, one specific work of art that you can share with others by actually using passive voice. Let's start, okay? This is a slideshow. Wow, right? Thanks so much.